Hello, this is Stephen Nojidi, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. In this video, we're going to look at Hojo-ryu. Now, normally, we focus on Tada Genji tradition, or the Shotoko Jingunden, the Tachibana Jingunden, or the Kusunoki tradition. Now, if you remember from a previous video, the Hojo-ryu was formed by Hojo Ujinaga, who was primarily a Koshu-ryu student, but he also studied Kusunoki Fuden school as well. And because he wanted to take the best parts of both systems and combine them into a new creation, he created Hojo-ryu. So Hojo-ryu has material related to castle structures and formations taken from Kusunoki Fuden school, or the Kusunoki tradition. So one of the reasons we're looking at Hojo-ryu in this regard is because in this video, as you can see on your screen, we're going to look at one of the foundational documents of Hojo-ryu, which is basically like a giant dictionary. It goes through a bunch of military terms, and it provides almost like a dictionary. It gives the terms, and then it gives definitions for the terms. And this is the world view, or the conceptual mapping for Hojo-ryu. So on your screen you can see this page, and these arrows are pointing to, the red arrows are pointing to types of castle entrances. You see it says Tiger's Mouth, and Tiger's Mouth is a samurai word for a castle entrance. And then the green arrows are pointing to the Umadashi, which we discussed in a previous video. And then the blue is pointing to a type of gate. So that's what's on this page. So as you can see in the original document, it just lists the different terms. Now that's the standard document. Then from the standard document, we are going to look at the commentaries, or the supplemental documents that come from this document. So you have the first document, gives you all of the terminology and the concepts. And then the further documentation, the commentaries and the additional text, go into those details. And we'll look at those as well. And we'll also go to the next page, and you'll see here the two arrows are pointing to types of watchtowers. So we discussed watchtowers only briefly in the camping video when we discussed the lean-to tent serving not only as a tent, but it's also a type of watchtower. Now in that camping video we only discussed it in terms of being a covert camp. In a future video we'll talk about how the covert camp actually becomes a covert watchtower when you're in your own territory. But that's for a future video. In this video we're going to talk about watchtowers as they are parts of a castle structure. So I'm showing you this page so you can see where they're listed in the main text, and then we'll look at this supplemental text later in this. So let's start with a little bit of review. So let's talk with basic castle structure. So the most basic castle structure that's presented in this system is a round enclosure around a square fortification. So you can see on there where I've put round enclosure next to the kanji, that that's what those kanji mean. It means round enclosure. And then the central part, it refers, that term refers to a square. Basically it means direction castle, but what that means is that it's a fortification that's equal on all sides, and it specifically refers to a square. So it is a square fortification that is surrounded by a circular enclosure. And this is essentially the most basic design. Next up, we're getting into a more proper castle design, in the sense that you have a Honmaru, a Nimaru, and a Sanmaru. So Hon-ni-san, or the headquarters, and then the first and second enclosures. So in the places, you'll literally, Hon is marked with the kanji for Hon, or origin, base, foundation. And then Ni is 2, San 3. So you can see which are considered the san and the ni. The san have an opening to the outside, and then the ni has an opening to the san and to the hon, and the hon only has openings to the ni. So if you take a moment to look at that, you'll see what makes it san, ni, and hon. And here we see that same principle of the Honmaru, the Nimaru, and the Sanmaru, and how they're building, still within this sort of circular structure, but now you'll see it can become a little more complicated. So now, rather than just enclosure 3, enclosure 2, and then the base of operations is more complex now, and the Nimaru is more complex, and the Sanmaru is more complex. So you can see how the idea is building. So you have fundamental principles, and then from those you only add to the complexity. So don't start off trying to comprehend this as a complex series of structures. Start from basic geometric designs, and then as you become very used to and accustomed to those designs, then you can increase the difficulty or increase the complexity. And I also want you to take notice in the corner how you'll see some trigrams. And this is important because yin and yang and the trigrams play a very big role in the castle arrangement, the castle structure. And let's just take a look at that for a moment on this page. So all of these pages are coming from the supplemental documents. So you have the original document, or the root document, the base one with all the terms and the definitions, and then now the subsequent documents that go with that have all of these diagrams. So in this diagram you can see this is a diagram of all of the trigrams and how they're born from. So it starts from the bottom and works its way up. So you have emptiness, or the limitless potential that is even prior to the Daiji, right? And then you have the Daiji, the ordering principle of the universe, right? You could consider that the Tao if you want to. The Tao, the Daiji, the ordering principle. So emptiness beyond the Daiji, then that gives rise to the Daiji, the ordering principle, and then the ordering principle gives rise to yin and to yang. And then from this come the trigrams, and then from the trigrams will come the hexagrams. But for castle structure, for battle formations and for castle structures, it is these 8 trigrams. You don't need to worry about all the hexagrams. Some systems get into that, but for the most part, the majority of the material is the 8 trigrams. So on this page we're looking at diagrams of the fundamental diagram of the castle openings. And you'll see the outside and then the inside. So that thick line represents the castle wall, the fortification wall. And then you see the kanjis for outside and inside. And then you'll see a little break there. That little break with the red line going through it, that's the opening. So within the fundamental teaching, if there's no barricade whatsoever, it's called Great Yin, because there's nothing, it's completely receiving. If you have a barricade of some kind on the inside of the castle gate or the opening, then it's called a yin opening because it receives. But if you have a barricade on the outside of the opening, then it's called a yang opening or a yang gate, because because you are no longer receiving, you are pushing forward, right? So if there's no blockage, it's great yin. If there is a block on the inside, it is yin, and if it is a block on the outside, then it is yang. Now on this page we have an interesting structure that's basically called the inside and the outside form. And what that the top one, and what that refers to is that technically it's on the inside, but it still functions as if it was on the outside. So if you can get an idea, the enemy initially comes in through the gate, but then they're immediately corralled in a zone once they come in through the gate. So as you can see in the picture, you can have that structure on the outside, but in this particular case, for various reasons, you may choose to have it on the inside. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see what's called the Angled Umadashi, in which the barricade, and remember the Umadashi can either be a structured barricade, or it could be a trench with the dirt that you take out of the trench then piled onto the inside, so that you have a trench and a raised surface. That is it's a similar structure in that it corrals the enemy. The question is, do you want to corral them on the outside? Do you want to corral them on the inside? And here we see two types of umadashi. The first one is called the Maru Umadashi, and the second one is the Kanji of Tomoe Umadashi. So in in the standard in the standard Maru Umadashi, or the circle Umadashi, when it says circle, but it's really referring to a half circle, like a semicircle, as you can see in the picture. Um, and but you'll also notice that it has these two additional walls placed, if you can see in the picture, where the red arrow has to not only come in from the side, but then it's still got to kind of go around some walls there. On the bottom, that the character where it says Tomoe Kanji Umadashi, the idea is that this structure, which is built, which is a series of land, that's land, where the red arrow is going, is it's land, and it's either, so the white part is land, the black part represents a height differential, and the gray shaded area represents either a trench or a moat. So the invaders have to come and they have to zigzag along this island, this snaking island, in order to get to the inside. And here on this picture again we see that inside out structure, but in this particular case it's just referred to as the external form, because in this particular case the gate is still not on. You have to you go through the gate later. So if you go through the gate first and then run into this sort of receiving square, it's called the inside outside form. But if the receiving structure is on the outer wall and then you have the gate, then it is called the outer shape, or the outer form. And at the bottom of the screen you can just see an example of a gate. And speaking of gates, let's just take a moment to look at some of those. In this particular one here, you will see the gate. It's a giant barricade, fortified door, and the top says this is good, this is correct, this is how you want it to be hinged. And the bottom, this is wrong, this is bad, do not hinge it this way. Simply put, because that hinging there is easy to undo. So the gate will not operate properly if you have that kind of wrong or incorrect hinging. Now the gate that we're looking at here, so we just looked at a giant massive, these are thick fortified doors with these proper hinges, right? And they swing open sideways, like normal, like doors that we're used to. But now we have a transparent gate, or a see-through gate. And this is a minor gate. So this, as you can see at the bottom, you can see where this would be located. So this is past the gate, but it's blocking. So you'd have to come in, get through that, and then you have to get, this gate would be here. So when you see a lot of these pictures where the people would have to come in, you can see where gates could be located. And in some other pictures I'll have like stars where gates may be, or where troops may be located. But you can put something like this, and this is like almost a reverse drawbridge. Rather than the gate going down, the gate comes up. But something like this, and the name of the gate is, you'll see where I have the line on the kanji, it just means see-through or transparent. So this is not a thick fortified structure. This is a you can see through this. This is a like crosshatch kind of construction. But even this can become a substantial barrier to an invading force when placed in the correct location. Now let's do a little pop quiz here. Question number 1. Is this yin or yang? So based on the primary commentary, is this yin or is this yang? Question number 2. Based on yin, is this yin or yang? Based according to the primary commentary. And I'm saying this because once you answer this question, I will show you that there is an alternate way to identify. But based on what we've discussed so far, what is number 1 and what is number 2? So the answers to these questions are: the first one, number 1, this is yin, because the barricade is on the inside. The barricade is on the receiving end. And number 2 is yang, because the barricade is on the outside. The barricade is pushing into the enemy. Now, I'm going to introduce this. It may be a little confusing, so I want to make sure you understand. Everything I've showed you so far is based on the main text and the main commentary to the text. However, 100-something years later, a branch of the school decided to redefine yin and yang, rather than yin being receiving and yang being pushing forward, which is essentially how it works in most of the systems that we discuss. This branch of the school decided that yang would mean unimpeded and yin would mean obstructed. So in their version of the school, a yang entrance is like on the top, where it's a straight shot. Now a straight shot normally would be called a yin entrance, but in their school a straight shot is called yang because unimpeded. But for them, yin means any kind of obstructed entrance. So in this case, this at the bottom of the screen you see this zigzag. They conceive of that as being a yin castle entrance. So in this branch of the school, they've actually flipped the concepts of yin and yang. So the reason I'm showing this to you is that not every school defines the terms and conceives of the terms the same way. Even branches of schools might end up defining and conceiving of the concepts in very different ways. With that having been said, let's get back to the normal commentary. So the main text and its more immediate supplement, more immediate commentary. So here we can see wall structure. So in a previous picture we looked at walls that were erected in the middle. Once someone got past the openings of the Umadashi, then there were some walls. They were represented as just thick black lines. But here we can see on the bottom, you can see where the red arrow comes through, and then there's a wall there, right? So now it's not just coming into the structure, but you've actually put a wall that extends halfway through the opening. And the top picture shows an interesting bit where that's actually an island. So the purple would represent yourself in the top picture. And the purple, it starts on the inside and you cross a bridge to an island, then you cross another bridge to another island, and where the purple is on that island can have walls that have shooting ports where people are shooting guns or arrows from these ports. Now that island is completely it's inaccessible to the enemy. You see the enemy in red trying to find a way to the island. There's no way to the island. So that's another defensive structure. On this page, we see the green arrows represent, or first let's start with the red. So the red is an enemy on the outside, and then they've got to snake their way past all the entrances, and each of those stars represent a point where there could be a group of soldiers, or maybe even some kind of wall or fence in the way. So they have to make their way past all these potential challenges while they snake their way through the structures. But the red circles, those represent two types of watchtowers. And the green arrows are pointing to where the watchtower is in relation to the structure. So if the watchtower is on the inside of the Umadashi, right, on the inside of the barricade, then it's got one name. Then if it's on the outside of the barricade, it has a different name. And the names basically refer to like whether it's enclosed or not enclosed, right? But the purple arrows are pointing to different places the watchtower has line of sight or line of shot. So this is another defensive structure. So you can see it starts off with a simple, we have a wall, we have a fortification with an opening, the gate. And then we throw some kind of umadashi or some kind of angled or circular or half circle barrier. And then once we have that barrier, we can then put some fences up. And then once we have some fences up, we can put some watchtowers up. And as you add each one of these things in its correct place, it becomes more and more defensive. Here we have a good example of the water watchtower. The water, that's in blue, so I've circled it in blue with a blue arrow pointing to it. That watchtower is actually built in the water. So you can see there is a fortified wall and then there is a liquid water. Whether it's a natural river or it's a dug moat, either way, the tower is in the water, and then down in red you can see that says bridge of the outside structure. So remember, the outside structure means that the structure is receding in, right? We looked at that earlier in the video. So outside structure means that the square it recedes inward, and then there's a bridge, and I put the arrow in green to the bridge. So the red arrows are pointing to the outside form, the receiving structure leading to a bridge. And basically when you have a bridge coming off of one of those, it's just called the bridge outside form. And so that if you see bridge outside form, that's what it's referring to, is that design right there. So in this picture you can see the bridge outside form with the bridge leading inside, and then there's a watchtower that's actually built into the water. So you don't have to place your watchtowers just on land. Many times they can be built out of trenches or out of the water or out of the river, etc., etc. And on this page, this is essentially a lot of the stuff that we've looked at already, but I've put the stars in places where there could be fences or there could be potential engagements with enemy troops. If you look at the top left, we have the Maru Umadashi, or the half circle Umadashi. So you see the enemy has to come in, and then it goes through the opening, and then there's those black lines jutting up. Those are those fences, or those fortified walls, fortified fences that I discussed. And anywhere where these stars are, these are places where enemies could fight, right? Or people could get ambushed. The same for the bottom structure, similar to that. They have to get their way in through a small opening, and right when they come through the opening, there's a fortified wall. So they got to fight their way around. There could be fences there. There could be ambush troops set up, just normal troops, etc. Top right, same thing. The top right one is a little easier because you just kind of come up and around. There's no fortified walls, but there could be those transparent fences or those see-through fences. There's also guaranteed to be soldiers set up in those spots. The bottom right is very similar to the Maru Umadashi. That is an angular Umadashi. It's the same principle. The only difference is it's angled instead of rounded. Here we have the traverse, or the crossing watchtower. Now this one, I'm going to try to explain it to you so you can understand. So the structure on the left and the structure on the right are actually fortifications that are on raised surfaces. And that little bridge structure is connecting the right structure to the left structure. And then everything that's not there is on the ground underneath. So where it says outside, that's down, that is ground level. Everything else is raised up and fortified. So the enemy, in this particular case, the enemy have to go under. They don't just go through an opening gate or a normal gate. They actually have to go through this opening. But the opening itself, the top of the opening, is this cross bridge between two fortified positions. And then these fortified positions on the right that line the opening are actually considered a type of watchtower. And from here, they can pepper the enemy with all kinds of rounds, arrows, bullets, etc., etc., etc. So in this particular case, this is a better idea. It's not. Don't think of the openings as just like a gate that you walk through. The gate might actually be an opening between two fortified and raised positions. And simply walking through the gate may be, you may be getting shot at while going through the gate because it may be designed like this. Here's another fun example. So it starts at the bottom right where it says outside, and you're going to fight there. Then you got to work your way to the bridge, fight to get over the bridge. Once you're over the bridge, you're on this little island structure. You got to fight there. Then once you're on the little island structure, you're fighting multiple places, right? And you're going from inside to outside because, again, you have different fortification arrangements on there, so you got to fight your way all up through this zigzagging island. Then you get to a bridge. You got to fight, got to fight your way across the bridge. Then finally you can be inside the structure, inside the actual fortification. All right, and that is it for this video. In a future video, we will look at more Kusunoki tradition specific castle structures, or Genji tradition, Kusunoki tradition specific. Remember though that because these are Hojo-ryu documents, they are heavily influenced by Kusunoki Fuden's tradition. So when we do make a Kusunoki castle structure specific video, you're going to see it's very much the same material. The diagrams will be a little different, but it's still very much the same. And that pretty much that goes kind of across the board. Each tradition does have its different views and ideas, but much of the material is the same, due pretty much just to the nature of warfare. And that is it for this video. As always, these videos are meant to be brief, and they are meant to inspire you or to give you a starting off point. The material in this video is copywritten by me, so please do not steal this material. Please do not take it. Please do not copy it. Again, I hope it inspires you. I hope that it sets you off on your own investigations and explorations, but please be respectful.